Welcome, my name is Casey Welch. I'm the director of the Institute for Public Policy and Leadership at the University of South Florida, and today we have two distinguished guests, State Representative Will Robinson and State Senator Jim Boyd. Welcome.
Thank you.
Today we're going to talk first about your committee assignments for the upcoming 2022 legislative session. Representative Robinson, will you talk about your assignments for this coming year?
Sure, and I don't know what I did to deserve 7 committees, but hopefully the Speaker has some confidence in me. But I have 7 committees as committee assignments this session, so I'm very excited about all of them, including 2 on redistricting, one the main redistricting committee and vice chair of state maps as well. I'm also chairman of professions and public health, so anything involving the Department of Health or scope of practice, battles between doctors and nurses, and medical marijuana will flow through my committee. So I'm very actually honored to be on a healthcare committee and chair a healthcare committee, certainly in the era that we're in. I'm on the main healthcare committee, healthcare appropriations, so several fun committees over this session. It's going to keep me nice and busy.
Senator Boyd, what about your assignments this upcoming year?
Yeah, so I don't have quite as many as my colleague, but I chair banking and insurance in the Senate. I'm also on the Judiciary. I'm on Rules Committee, and then 2 sub-approps committees, Ag and Transportation and Economic Development. And then finally, I sit on the Joint Legislative Auditing Committee. So enough to keep me busy, but not quite as busy as my friend.
Well, absolutely. Well, I know residents of Manatee County appreciate having you both in those strategic places. One thing that Manatee County faced uniquely through the previous legislative session was the issue at Piney Point. Can both of you talk a little bit about that? Maybe Senator Boyd talk about the latest that you all are hearing on Piney Point and how that recovery is going?
Sure. Thank you for asking. It's a very important issue to our community, and Representative Robinson and I have worked hard on that through the past year to try to make the best situation that we can occur out there. And I believe it's on the path to be that. We all know the history of Piney Point. Back when I was in the House 4 or 5 years ago, we thought we were going to be able to deal with it then. The county was kind of on board. Everybody was, DEP and Tallahassee was on board. Sadly, it just didn't get done for a variety of reasons. But so we are where we are. So with the breach last year, it kind of put a heightened sense of urgency on the situation. We were fortunate enough in the legislature, the president committed $100 million out of the federal funding that we drew back to Florida to close and fix the problem once and for all. Representative Robinson can speak to it, but he was helpful in the House in getting that across the finish line as well. So right now we're on a path. It's going to take, I just met with the receiver yesterday actually, it's going to take probably 5 or 6 years to get us to the finish line, but that may seem like a long amount of time, but based on where we've been with the project over the years and where we're headed, I think it's it's time that we have to spend. So the money is there, a receiver's in place. He's working closely with DEP, with the county to the extent they need to be involved, and then also with the landowners and actually the mortgage holders. There's a new group that bought the mortgage. I met with that gentleman this week as well, and he's very interested in helping us get the project completed, and then ultimately they've got, I think, pretty significant plans for that property once it's the portion they will own, presumably, once it's cleaned up and once it's kind of back to its natural state. So finally, I think we're heading in a great direction. We're going to get to the finish line. We're both committed to making sure that happens. DEP and the Secretary and the Governor, the Speaker, the President of the Senate, everybody's on the same page, and that's a very good place to be. So I'm very optimistic that while it may be a few years out, we're going to see the end to the problems that we've had. And in the meantime, I think there's measures underway to treat the water that's there and to make sure that if we do have another breach, it's not significant.
Right.
In fact, one last thing, excuse me.
No, go ahead.
In fact, the water that they are releasing into the bay is, by all measures, cleaner than the water in the bay. So, there's been a lot of talk along through the process of the pollution that was not there, but some thought it was, and some wanted to make us believe it was, and some of the things that might cause problems to our habitat and our estuaries and the like. I'm very comfortable that the little bit that is still being released is very clean and the water quality is very high. So in the meantime, until we get final closure, I think the community is safe, the area is safe, the environment's safe, and we're monitoring it very carefully.
No, I think that's very important for Manatee County residents, and I know Representative Robinson, you were at that press conference along with Senator Boyd and the Senate President, of course the Governor, the Secretary of the Department of Environmental Protection. Talk a little bit about, to the residents and your constituents in particular, the importance of having all of those stakeholders together and one point and committed to the path forward that Senator Boyd just laid out.
It's incredibly important, and I'm going to back up actually a little bit. I will never forget that day. It was actually Good Friday when the breach occurred, and actually Senator Boyd and I talked, I think, the next hour and raced out to a press conference. And I will never forget that. It was very dark, hundreds of media there, and my comment then was, this has to be the last chapter of Piney Point. This has been going on for like 30 years, and nothing has happened. And it frankly took great leadership on the governor's part. Governor flew down a couple times, certainly the president of the Senate, the Speaker of the House, and Senator Boyd and I, and frankly our entire delegation. It was a tribute to bipartisanship to hopefully get this issue behind us. To get $100 million appropriated to solve this is a pretty big deal, and took a lot of effort. And so we're proud of what we've done in the past, but moving forward, look, we haven't gotten it all the way there. I think we're on. I agree with Senator Boyd. We're on the right path. The next step is getting the water out of the ponds, and then finally getting. What do you do with the ponds? Do you put them on top of each other? Do you put dirt on there? Do you remove the dirt? So that'll have to be bid out and figure out exactly how to close out the site and what to do with it. I mean, it's a very complicated issue because it's on private property, and it's in bankruptcy and in foreclosure. So the last thing that I want to do is clean up on state taxpayer money a site and leave it crystal clear for private property development. So I've had several conversations with the DEP secretary on that issue. I'm happy where we are, and like Senator Boyd, I wish we could go a little bit quicker, but with the permitting and the other issues that we need to do to solve this, I think we're in the best place we can be right now. But frankly, and we'll talk about this later in the program, one of my priorities for this session is to make sure we keep moving with progress down this issue, because we've gotten part of the way there, but we're not all the way there.
No, that's important. One other issue that obviously is not just localized in Manatee County is obviously COVID-19, and we're still dealing with the effects of that. We saw recent court rulings about mask mandates and vaccines and everything. Talk a little bit about the recent special session you all had in Tallahassee in November, and the outcomes and the goals that you all had when you met in Tallahassee. Representative Robinson. Look,
COVID has been a devastating issue for our community, for the health of our citizens. I've had friends that have died from COVID. It's an awful situation that hopefully we see the light at the end of the tunnel. And but we felt very necessary with the governor, the president, and the speaker that you shouldn't have to choose between your job and your private health care decisions. And we felt with the, frankly, in my opinion, the unconstitutional Biden vaccine mandate, that was forcing some folks into those decision points. And I had a lot of small business owners reach out to me with grave concerns about that vaccine mandate from the Biden administration. So I felt it incumbent upon those constituents, and frankly, based upon my philosophy, to make sure we did something to put some guardrails around what some businesses may want to do with regard to vaccine mandates, and I think we accomplished our goal. It was a contentious session. It was fairly divided, a Republican versus Democrat. But let me give you one example of something that I think was a no-brainer. There was a bill that passed, one of the, I think it was 4 bills that we passed during the session, and one of them was really to remove 2 words from the power of the Department of Health: forced vaccinations. That's actually on the books in the state of, or was on the books in the state of Florida, forced vaccinations, where you literally could have a law enforcement individual show up at your door and force you to get vaccinated. That didn't make any sense to me. I didn't understand why any government should have that type of power. So we did a lot of great things in this space, and certainly I think, at least from the folks that I've heard of, are proud of what we did during that special session.
Senator Boyd, do you want to comment on the special session?
Yeah, I would put an exclamation point on what Representative Robinson said and add, Florida is in great shape, both from the epidemic and the results and where we are, where we're headed. We're doing the right things the right way. I can't imagine some of the other states that have forced these vaccine mandates, and now just most recently everybody's heard that the mayor of New York is forcing vaccine mandates on private employers. That's not America. That's not who we are. I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat, Independent. We ought to have those freedoms that we can choose for our families and for ourselves, and government shouldn't tell us. So I think the special session was necessary. I'm very proud to be a Floridian. I talk to folks across the country from time to time about different things, sometimes business, sometimes politics, most all of them are envious of us and where we are with respect to moving through the crisis, the COVID crisis, and it was bad. I don't disagree with that. I mean, like Representative Robinson, I had friends that died, and other friends that were very sick. It's serious, but I think we did things the right way to protect families, to protect our community, protect our state, and the results are clear. People are moving here at 1,000 or more a day from all over the place, a lot of them from the Northeast, and a lot of those folks are coming here because they don't like those mandates and those government pressures put on them. So we're welcoming them in and look forward to broadening our tax base, candidly, with new folks that are coming here every day. So Florida's got it right, and I think history will prove that we got it right, and I'm very happy to be part of that.
And to follow up a little bit on that, so some folks want to conflate mandates with the efficiency and effectiveness of vaccines. Those are two totally different topics. I made the choice to get vaccinated, and I'll get my booster shot any day now, hopefully. But I don't believe we should have a mandate. And that's what those are two entirely different things. And the senator is exactly right. When people come to Florida, they want to visit our beaches. They want to visit our restaurants. They want to enjoy our great climate down here. They don't want to be showing their papers all over the place. They want to come here to enjoy life. And that's really why people, along with a lot of other issues, why people are moving here in droves and flocks, because they love what we're doing here.
Could I? And I'll just
Absolutely,
add, I'm sorry,
please.
I'll just add
No,
one thing
please.
because it just cues up. I met with a gentleman who's a colleague of ours in an agency in the state, and he's going up to New York for Christmas. His family, they're going up to just enjoy the city. And he was telling me today about all of the things he has to do, not hotel reservations, not play reservations, not dinner reservations, but all of the hurdles he's got to go through to prove that he's, eligible to be allowed into that community. It's insane. But, they're doing it. They're going to comply because they want to go and enjoy New York at Christmas time. And I get that. It's a beautiful place at Christmas. So, but that's the difference between some of those states and Florida.
No, I appreciate that. And another issue that you all have dealt with in the past, and it looks like because of recent court action, you're going to be dealing with in the future. And as college football bowl season rolls around, is sports betting and the Seminole Compact. Senator Boyd, can you talk a little bit about what you think may be coming up in the legislative session, if that's going to be addressed, and where we've been in the past on that issue?
Yeah, just in the big sense of like 30,000 foot
Right.
view, and Representative Robinson and I met with some folks last night. We talked about it, and he had some great points, so I'm sure he'll want to chime in. But the Seminole Compact that we've had for years is important to Florida. Any given year, it's $200 to $300 million of revenue for Florida. The new compact that was signed last year, that the legislature ratified, produces perhaps as much as maybe $500 million. I mean, it's a big number.
Right.
So now the Department of Interior, under Biden's administration, approved the compact, and then the other groups, brought suit, and we are where we are. So right now, as everybody knows, I mean, that's kind of in limbo. The sports betting component is in limbo. Some were continuing on, anyway, in the sports betting side, and some may still be. The Seminoles basically pulled the plug on their portion of it. So it'll be sorted out in court, and then if the legislature has to do something additional, right, because it is an important issue to Florida, I'm certain that we'll tackle it and do it. But I think right now, at least from our perspective, it's a little bit of a, let's see what the court, what the courts determine here in the near run, and then we'll know what to do. And we've got time. I mean, session starts in January, so we've got some time ahead of us if we need to do anything.
Representative Robinson, you want to comment on that?
So the original compact that Senator Boyd was referring to had expired.
Right.
And that was the need. Actually, we'd been talking about renewing the compact, I think, since I've been in the legislature, so this is my 4th year. And so it was very important to get that across, get a deal with the Seminole Indian tribe, because look, people don't understand that, and I didn't really understand this before I got in office. They're a sovereign nation. It's almost like we can't dictate to France anything. It's very similar, and so we have to have this agreement with them. And we have an interesting provision in our Constitution that disallows the expansion of gambling without voter approval, but that doesn't cover the sovereign lands of the Seminole Indian tribe. So we were negotiating with that, and the sports betting issue you mentioned, and one of the issues the court had is you can go on Seminole tribe lands and place your bet. I would, maybe Notre Dame. You think Notre Dame may beat Florida State, for instance? Okay.
I bet on Notre Dame.
But the compact also allowed you could be in your bedroom. on your mobile app. The court thought that that wasn't a good argument, that just because your servers were located on tribal lands, that didn't really pass the smell test with that constitutional amendment regarding the expansion. So the short answer is it's been stayed, which means you can't bet right now, and the compact has been kind of stayed. So I would expect, as Senator Boyd said, we'll see how believe me, the court books are filled with stuff that's been overturned by another court. So I'm sure the Attorney General and the Governor's office are filing their briefs to overturn that. And if we have to do something legislatively to clean up something, certainly we'll get that done this session.
Well, I appreciate that. One of the other issues that seem to have come up over the committee weeks that just wrapped up last week is healthcare, and in particular, I know you all have oversight over healthcare. In particular, I know you're in healthcare policy committees, as you mentioned in the beginning. We're seeing the effects post-COVID in particular, but it was relevant before COVID, the overwhelming shortage of nurses in the state of Florida, and the projections of a 60,000 person hole in that over time. What do you think the legislature is looking at in this upcoming session or sessions moving forward to address that need, Representative Robinson?
It's a huge problem. And we had, I think, about a 3-hour committee hearing in my healthcare committee about this. And frankly, it's not just in this industry. It's in a lot of different industries. But I can't imagine I'm a lawyer, going to work in basically a hazmat suit, worrying about your health every day like nurses have to every day. And so that mental strain going with that is extreme. And frankly, there was some testimony from one of the hospital executives who said, if we have another major strain of COVID, he's fearful that he'll just have a bunch of nurses quit, just right on the spot. So from a legislative perspective, I think there are things we can do, whether it's get more nursing slots in some of these community colleges or other programs to get more nurses available. I had a bill a few years ago to allow nurses to qualify and to get their degree from a technical college or trade school. So I think there's a lot of things we can do. I'm fearful that these little things we may do in the legislature aren't going to fix the major problem, because I think this has been the #1 shortage in jobs of any job in Florida for the past 5 years. So frankly, if anyone has any ideas on this topic, I'm all ears, because it's something we've tried to solve, but for whatever reason, we haven't. And the testimony from these hospital executives was just so interesting. They're battling each other in pay increases. So one makes a pay increase, and across the street, the next one makes a pay increase. That's unsustainable. Certainly, the nurses are not paid enough, but to keep them bumping up back and forth, given the healthcare costs we have in this state, is unsustainable. And there's a lot more minutia I can get into about employment services and some other stuff that were interesting in the community level. But I think we have some strategies to help with the problem. But frankly, it's a private sector problem, and government's not going to fix it. But certainly, I think we can be supportive to make sure that we have the right environment, that these folks want to work in those hospitals, and that they're properly supported.
Can I follow up before I go to you, Senator Boyd? What groups need to get together? You were at, obviously, you said that hearing committee meeting was in front of your committee. What were the groups that needed to get together to talk more about that? I mean, who are the major players that need to get around the table and come up with some solutions?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, the hospital executives, the nurses, the doctors, patients, those that use the nurses. Those folks need to get together, and frankly, business leaders, because this is a business issue as well. We're going to be at the Manatee Chamber Pancakes and Politics event tomorrow. This is a huge issue for our local chamber as well. I think we could use the great minds we have in the Manatee Chamber to help us solve this problem, because it really is a private sector problem that is spilling into a public health crisis that we really need to help try to solve.
Well, I know, Senator Boyd, this is a place near dear to your heart, being on the Manatee Memorial Board, and something that is obviously affects Manatee County. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, a couple of points I might add to what Representative Robinson said. So to go back to the nursing shortage, beside everything else, nurses were being paid thousands of dollars a week to go somewhere else, so the traveling nurse program, and kind of draining a lot of our healthcare facilities for nurses that might go across the country, across the southeast, wherever. So that takes nurses away. They're going away, and I don't blame them. I mean, that's a lot of money. I would do it too. So then they ultimately, hopefully, will want to come home. So then maybe we'll get some of those back. But that whole funding issue of how do you afford them. And to Representative Robinson's point, when this hospital's doing one thing, the next one's got to step up, and then they got to step up, and before long, it just gets out of control. So, and at the same time, the current administration forces, fortunately a judge has ruled and it's under a stay, but the current administration in Washington mandated that if you're a healthcare facility, your employees must be vaccinated if you're going to get Medicare money. I mean, do you imagine how much money a local hospital would stand to lose from Medicare if they didn't abide by that? So they were in kind of many of them didn't want to do it, didn't want to force their employees to do it, but what are they going to do? Because there's this huge sum of money that they expect to be able to pay their bills and take care of their patients. And so then if that happens, beside that, there's a number of nurses that are saying, I'm not doing it, I'm out. As we saw in New York and some of the other states that nurses and law enforcement and other folks, some of them came our way because of it. So that whole problem is super complicated. We've got to figure it out. One of the things that locally, when you asked Representative Robinson what could be done, one of the things that's going on, which I applaud and I hope it'll get some traction, Dr. Probstfeld at State College of Florida is talking to some hospitals, trying to get some commitments in funding. So between the hospitals, and then she's talked to us in the legislature as well to see if there's a way we can help with some of the funding to fund some additional nursing student slots, because they've got the capacity, they've got the buildings, but they need to get some professors and to increase the number of nurses they turn out. So it's in the big picture, it's a good problem to have, because nursing jobs, besides being very critical to our community and important to our community, those are good paying positions as well. So we're working through that on the local level. I know there's other things going on around the state as well that are similar, but it's something that is not going to lose our attention because it's critical. And healthcare in Florida is a big issue, as it is in any state, but certainly in our district with the aging population, it's probably even bigger issue. So it'll get attention this year as well.
Do you all think, and obviously Manatee County area is not going to solve this issue, but do you think Manatee County could be a leader, bringing the community together between the relationships we have with the higher education and hospitals and the leadership that we know we have here with you all in the legislature together to attack this issue and be a model for the state? I know, Senator Boyd, you've been a champion on the opioid issue and have led and have shown the model, I think, for the state of how that can be properly done. Is that something you think we could do with nursing as well? Well,
look, I don't want to make it look like we're sitting here patting ourselves on the back, but I do believe this region, our community, our Manatee, Sarasota, Hillsborough, we've demonstrated before Representative Robinson and I even got in the legislature, and probably after us, there's good leadership that comes from our community and good thought, thinking folks that solve problems. Look, and I view our job as we didn't go up there to hold a seat or a title. We went up there to get things done and to do what's good for our community. So I fully expect we can have a seat at the table and help to get, help to find some solutions. But to the representative's point, we've got one thing we know, we don't know everything, right? And we need help, and we need counsel, and we need guidance from the experts in our community that are, in those areas that can give us feedback, can give us ideas, because we're certainly willing to champion good ideas. And we can think of some things and figure some things out on our own. But the folks that are on the ground that have great ideas and have solutions, we covet those conversations.
Representative Robinson, you want to comment on that?
Our area is just so replete with talent. Look at our higher education institutions. I mean, by the way, Florida has the #1 higher education system in the nation. We have some of the most amazing hospitals. I think there's 3 in my district alone, and I actually serve on the board of another hospital. Right. So we have some great talent here. We just need to put our heads together and find a solution that works on this topic.
Well, I want to pivot on 2 issues, but I can't miss the opportunity to have a lawyer and a man in the insurance business here at the same table to talk about insurance reform and reform around litigation on those issues. And I'll start with you, Senator Boyd. You talk about some insurance issues that may be coming up this legislative session.
Just don't make us arm wrestle.
Okay.
And by the way, Representative Robinson's a good lawyer.
You all are.
So there's no conflict between us and what we do. Look, insurance is a big issue. Every Floridian needs it, whether it's a homeowner's policy, an automobile policy, whatever their needs are, they need it. And my goal has always been in the legislature, even though I am in the insurance business, to make sure we have a competitive, vibrant insurance market. And we have that by encouraging carriers to come to Florida, not by discouraging carriers to be here and to run away. We've had a big issue in the property insurance arena, and we still have it. We got at some of the solutions last year, which was about 125-year-old one-way attorney fee reform. We got that done. I think that will produce significant results. And I will tell you, I'm an insurance guy that says, insurance companies don't always get it right. And occasionally somebody does need a lawyer to represent them, sadly, against maybe what was handled improperly or poorly. So I certainly understand that. But by the same token, a homeowner that has a claim on a roof doesn't need an attorney right out of the gate before they've even talked to their insurance company. So let's encourage that dialogue. Let's discourage the automatic engagement by third parties that don't really have an interest in the game except for getting a fee. And I'll just use one example. During the property insurance reform that we worked on last year, and candidly, we're going to try to take another stab at it this year on a few things that we didn't get across the finish line. One of the statistics that I just still find amazing is from 2015 on, $15 billion with a B, dollars of insurance claims, property insurance claims were paid in Florida. Of that $15 billion, 71% went to attorneys. 71%. Now, they weren't attorneys like Representative Robinson, because that's not what he does, and he understands that. But something's wrong with that picture. 8% went to a homeowner for the claim. I mean, you would think that's counterintuitive. It ought to be 71% went to the homeowner and 8% or 10% went to those that had needs to serve or to represent. But so those are the types of things that we're going to that we tried to fix. I think the legal fee reform that we did pass last year, the governor signed, I think will have significant improvement in that area. Sadly, it takes probably a year and a half for that to filter into the rate making process, but that's, I think, a little bit of relief that's coming, hopefully this time next year.
I'll do my best Judge Smith impression and ask you, counsel, what's your position?
Well, first of all, it's a pleasure to work with someone like Senator Boyd that has led on this issue.
Right.
I got to be honest with you, there may not be a more important issue than insurance in this upcoming or the next couple of legislative sessions. There will be nothing that will turn this economy in Florida back to where we were than awful when folks can't get insurance on their homes, or God forbid a major hurricane. Right. With folks on Citizens that we can't pay policies. It's an incredibly important issue. Reform is always tough, especially on a topic like this in Tallahassee, but we got to do it. We can't get to the point where folks can't renew their insurance on their homes, or the rates are. Every day I'm getting a call from a constituent about the rates have gone up 20% or 10% from the prior year, and that's unsustainable for anyone to be able to afford the quality of life that you have as a Floridian. So it's an issue that we got to keep tackling, and Senator Boyd did a great job getting us part of the way there, and I know there's some other bills that Senator Boyd's working on to help move the ball down the finish line, but we got to continue reform in this area because it's a real big problem in Florida. It's a ticking time bomb that if we don't solve, it's going to hit us pretty hard.
To just one final
Yeah,
thing to Will's point, think about all of the ancillary issues that not being able to get insurance causes. Realtors can't sell homes. Bankers can't issue mortgages on homes. I mean, and it goes on and on and on. And most importantly, the homeowner, if they do have a home already, can't afford the coverage that they've had. I mean, to his point, and it sounds really sad that I say this, I mean, a 10% increase right now, most people would welcome. I mean, I think that's too much, but we saw in our business, day in and day out, homeowners insurance premiums going up 20, 30%. I mean, it's just like, to Representative Robinson's point, it is absolutely unsustainable. And I believe we can fix it, but it's going to take the will and the strength of all of us working together and deciding that those that are making money off the system no longer deserve to fly around in the big jets and drive the fancy cars on the backs of a homeowner. I don't mind anybody making money. I don't mind anybody making a lot of money if that's their business and they can. I think that's the American way. God bless them. But when it's coming at the cost that it's running homeowners out of their homes because they can't afford to live there anymore, we definitely have a problem.
Well, Representative Robinson, you mentioned insurance is going to be not necessarily a perennial issue, but issue we're going to continue to deal with. One issue that's certainly going to dominate the 2022 session is redistricting, as we're required to do every 10 years. I know that's an issue that's very sensitive. I was hoping, since you're on that committee, and I know Senator Boyd, I want to get your perspective too, just talk process and maybe help your constituents understand what that looks like and what that means for them.
So in Florida, we normally just have one constitutional requirement in the legislature, to pass a balanced budget. By the way, wouldn't that be great if that was the only thing they had to do in D.C.? It's just to pass a balanced budget and go home. I digress a little bit. But we've added a second this session, which is maps. And we're required to do it. So we had a census, and we're going through the process right now. Everyone knows the problems we had 10 years ago. The good news is we have court rulings, we have precedent, we have a constitution, and we know what worked and what didn't work 10 years ago. And I think we're taking all of those lessons that we learned 10 years ago. I mean, I read the court opinion. It was about 200 pages. I read it 3 times. It's a very good court opinion to get ready for the
Light reading.
So I think we have a great understanding of what we need to do constitutionally, and we'll do it the right way. We'll do it constitutionally. In the House, we've had several hearings already, and frankly, it's one of the most open processes in the history of redistricting. You could actually draw your own map and submit it. I've had a constituent that drew his own map and filed it, and so staff will look at that. I think that's an amazing tool, and if anyone wants to Google Florida redistricting, I think it's floриdaredistricting.gov. You can go on the website and create your own map and submit it. We're just starting the process. We need to have the maps approved by the legislature by the end of session, and I anticipate that we will do that. And it's hard work. It's good work, but I'm happy to be on the committee, and I think we're going to do what we can to do constitutional and solid maps.
I appreciate it. Senator Boyd, do you want to comment on the process?
Sure. First thing I would say is we need to get Representative Robinson out a little more. If he's read that court opinion, 200-page court opinion 3 times.
Absolutely, I agree.
We need to get you out. But seriously, that's how conscientious he is.
Right.
So I can't add a whole lot more than he did, but we're all operating under the strict guidance and rule of transparency, and that it must follow the Constitution. I mean, those are the two big, kind of North Stars, if you will, in this process. And we're doing that. And I'll tell you how I know we're doing that. It's interesting, and I'll, maybe get a little bit off track here, but before the first committee was even held, before the chairman on both the House or the Senate side were even appointed, there was a group that said, we're suing you because we know you're not going to be fair in the maps. I mean, before the first committee was held. So anyway, fast forward to committees have been held, maps have been drawn, maps have been published, they're out there for public consumption, and we haven't heard a word from anybody. I don't know that they have in the House either, but on the Senate side, nobody's yelling and screaming, nobody's, that's not to say there won't be concerns as we move forward, but I think that, to me, indicates that we did take it seriously, we did follow strictly the Constitution, and we did it in a framework of transparency and really honestly trying to do the right thing. So the maps will be a little bit, none have been approved yet. None have, they've got to go finish the committee process and then go to the floor of the House and the Senate for vote. And then ultimately, if they pass and are approved, if somebody wants to challenge them, we'll have court scrutiny. But we're moving in the right direction. There'll be some uncomfortable, probably, spots for some people. When I was in the House 10 years ago when we did it, I was on the committee back then. There were a couple of House members that were drawn into the same district. 2 Republicans here, 2 Republicans there, 2 Democrats, whatever the case may be. Right. And they have to figure out, how to work it out. But that's the way it goes, and everybody did it. Everybody kind of managed through it. Everybody was gentlemen and gentlewomen about it. And, the state was well served. So I have no doubt that we'll get them passed, we'll get them through. And I trust that. I haven't been on the committee this year, but I trust that my colleagues are doing the right thing for the right reasons, and that, we'll have maps that'll decide who's running in what districts here in the early spring probably, and, qualifying will be upon us, and then the 22 election will be, right behind that, as everybody in the whole Florida legislature has to run this year because of redistricting. So I think we're on track, and I think we'll have a good product that'll produce good candidates to run for office and serve the state.
Well, that's great. Instead of focusing much on the macro issues, I want to talk a little bit more about your personal priorities as you enter into the session. I know I mentioned a little bit ago about the issues of opioids. Can you talk a little bit about what your intent is with that project and any
Sure.
of the other bills that you want to focus on this session?
Yeah, thank you. And I've got a handful of bills. I kind of committed to myself and our team that we try not to have any more than 10 bills this year. In the Senate, you can have a bunch. And I particularly don't think I'm not saying it's a bad idea for those that want to do it. I don't think we need a bunch more new laws. I think we need to manage what we have, and occasionally there's things that need to be addressed, and we ought to address them. That said, a couple of things I'm working on that are important. I've got another bill this year. I did a bill last year for the clerks of the court that kind of helped them and manage through some things that a lot of it COVID created and different things. So we're working on another initiative for them. I'm excited about that. The opioid situation is sadly not going away. We passed some legislation back in 4 or 5 years ago that one was a penalty bill for traffickers and dealers, and I think that's had some impact according to law enforcement across the state. And then we passed a prescription and use bill beyond that, which limited the amount of opioid that could be prescribed in the time frame. That has had dramatic impact, right. I think. And this year I've got a bill that essentially it's pretty simple, but it allows pharmacists to prescribe Narcan, the opioid antagonist. So if somebody's overdosed, it's a very easy to use device that you stick in your leg, and it gives you the Narcan to undo to counteract the overdose. And so if you're a caregiver or a family member, you can go into a pharmacy and say, we've got these circumstances, and under the pharmacist supervision and direction, they can dispense that for someone. So that'll save lives. I used an example in committee last week. In Seminole County, there were already to date, there were 800 Narcan uses where an overdose had occurred. And I think, if I remember the numbers right, like 650 or so lived as a result of getting Narcan. Sadly, 150 died. But that's a pretty significant positive impact for those that are sadly suffering. And I think what we've learned through all of this, and what we should have known before, but I think we all understand now for sure, is drug abuse it's illness and a sickness, and it's not something that anybody wishes on anybody, and sometimes you get involved in these things and you can't control it. And so we've got to do other things beyond just helping save people when they overdose and those types of things to really help that mental health kind of area that people need. And I'm all about that, and I certainly want to be part of that. I wish I could say that we'll do 3 or 4 things and the opioid and the fentanyl epidemic will be gone. Yeah. It makes too much money for the bad people, and so we're going to always be fighting it, I believe. But this legislature is willing to fight it because it's tearing apart families, it's tearing apart our communities and our state, and we're not going to sit by idly and just let that happen. So we're going to do everything we can, continue to fight. And then one last thing, real quickly, I'm working on with the Attorney General and the Retail Federation. We've seen these instances across the country of these smash and grabs, and little or no laws to protect the store owner, the merchant, the person that's invested their life savings in these businesses in some cases, and very little or no penalties for those that are doing it. We've had an instance here in Manatee County, I think last week, if I'm correct, on the same thing happening. So we're working on strengthening some penalties for those types of occurrences to try to be a deterrent for those that otherwise think, well, I can do that and pretty much get away with it. Not in Florida. So we're working on that too.
Thank you. Representative Robinson, are there some specific priorities that you're working on this year?
Well, certainly, as I mentioned earlier in the program, Piney Point, to make sure we continue the progress with that. We appropriated $100 million, so making sure that that's being allocated properly and in constant communication with the DEP and all the folks that are involved in that. That's an incredibly important issue for our community. So that's a top priority of mine this session, to make sure we keep that progress moving forward. And I'll talk about a little bit different type of issue than Senator Boyd did. Boyd talked about policy. I'll talk about appropriations. Right. So those are kind of 2 different things you can file in the legislature. And a focus of mine certainly this year is going to be on appropriations. We are very blessed in the state of Florida that we're able to do some of these appropriations. I say this all the time. We just passed New York State in population, but we have half the budget that New York State does. So because we've been so fiscally responsible, we have the opportunity to do other things where the need is great. And frankly, in our area, we have a lot of water issues, water projects that could be appropriately funded, whether it's septic to sewer or the sewer line that goes out to Longboat Key that busted a few years ago that caused an environmental calamity. There's a lot of appropriations that I'm working on to hopefully improve the water quality in our region because, look, folks come here because of our great climate, our beaches, our water, and our water is great, don't get me wrong, but it could always be better. And so for me, working on water issues is a very top priority for this session to make sure we keep, just like with Piney Point, keep the progress moving forward that we've done over the past few years.
Go ahead, sir.
Representative Robinson just jogged something in my memory on something else we're working on together, and it's very important, and I think it's going to be really great for our community. It's not done yet, it's not ready for prime time, but we're working on a coastal area of our community that is ripe for development, but it's also ripe for conservation lands and maybe a state park and some things that are really near and dear to our hearts. And I'm really excited to be working on that together. And we're not ready to announce yet what we're doing because there's a lot of moving parts as we speak. But stay tuned because that will be big for Manatee County when we hopefully can get that across the finish line.
So that's a teaser, so invite us back.
Absolutely. We'll have to do the wrap-up show. As we are wrapping up, are any closing thoughts, Representative Robinson?
Well, it's just a pleasure to sit down here with you and Senator Boyd and talk about the session, preview of this session. It's going to be my 4th legislative session, and what I've learned is every session is unique, and maybe the big issue of session 4 for me hasn't revealed itself yet. COVID actually occurred at the tail end of my 2nd session. Right. So the great thing with working with Senator Boyd and our delegation is we can deal with any issue that comes our way. So I have great confidence that we're going to have an outstanding session. Certainly if any constituent wants to reach me, email me, call me. I think my email address is will.robinson@myfloridahouse.gov. Love to hear from all my constituents about what their concerns, their needs, their issues are. So it's something that I really look forward to, and hopefully we have a great session.
Senator?
Yeah, I would echo the representative's comments. It's a real pleasure for me to be able to work with somebody like Representative Robinson and partner with him, Representative Gregory, Representative McFarland and Buchanan, and then Rayner that comes down into our area. We've got a great team that really cares about serving our community, and I couldn't imagine a better partnership between the House and the Senate in our region. And overall, I think both bodies get along pretty well. We kid each other about the upper chamber, the lower chamber. It doesn't matter. We're all serving the same constituents, and it's important that we work together and remember that's what we're there for. So I expect kind of to what Will said. Sometimes things reveal themselves along the way we don't expect, and probably there'll be one of those, or hopefully not many. But that'll take attention as well. But I think it'll be a very productive session. We got a lot of big stuff to get done. I'm confident we're going to get it done. And the good news is Florida's thriving. Our economy's thriving. There's still people that need to, we've got to get them back to work, and there's a lot of jobs open. So there's work for us to do on that part, trying to help people get to where they want to be. But in the big picture, I'm just really excited about where Florida's headed and how we're getting there along the way. So it's great to serve the community, and reach out to our office as well if anybody needs anything or anybody needs help on any issue. We've dealt with a lot, both of us, through the unemployment crisis that with DEO and some of those organizations to help people get the monies they deserve. So we're there for whatever the need may be. We're there to help, and that's what you put us in office for. So please call us if there's things we can do to help.
Well, we appreciate you, Representative Robinson, Senator Boyd. Thank you for joining everyone today, and good luck and safe travels to Tallahassee. If any one of your constituents wants to reach you, go on to Online Sunshine, either flsenate.gov or myfloridahouse.gov to be able to reach Representative Robinson and Senator Boyd's office. And thank you for joining us today.